Welcome back. We are back in the studio. We had some technical difficulties. We're with Miguel Guerra live from Paris, France. So we're going to bring him back in. This happens sometimes because I live in the sticks, right? And he lives 5 hours away. So, let's get this rolling. I'm going to try to get Miguel back in. All right. Let's see. So, let's see if we can get Miguel back in here. Let's see if we get Miguel back in here. Whoops, remove that. And let's see if he's in. You gotta love this technology. Here we go. There he goes again.
I changed rooms.
Oh, okay. You know, the last time when I interviewed with Paris a la Geek, your show, I think I was in my basement and we had similar things because the room does matter, you know? Like
yeah, it does matter. It totally does. I'm hoping anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm closer to the machine, so the modem.
Oh, that's good.
So yeah, it's kind of interesting. So you were asking me how I got started in wanting to be a comic book artist.
Yeah, like what made you decide like this is what I want to do? This is for me. This is, you know.
Wow, I know since I was 5 or even younger than that, since I can remember, I used to drive my parents nuts. My dad, who's an engineer, dubbed me Michelangelo because I used to sit and draw on the walls like when I was really little, and they kept giving me paper, and I would draw a little bit and then toss it aside and keep drawing on the walls, much to the chagrin of my brother, who had to end up painting the walls because he was 10 years older than me. And his best friend would come over, and he could draw, like his pen drawings were very similar to John Buscema, and he loved drawing Conan in that style.
Mm-hmm.
So I used to sit and watch him, and to me it was like magic, right? It was like, wow. And I get him, hey, can you draw Spider-Man? He draw me Spider-Man. You have a comic book cover. And I used to get my comics from the bases.
Mm-hmm.
So I had like Spanish comics, I had American comics.
Mm-hmm. And where did you grow up on this base? Where was this base located?
Well, the base was, I was off base.
Uh-huh.
But my dad was able to get whatever I wanted from the base because there's something regular that he'd go to. Most Americans would at least have some military background, even if you're no longer in the military, if you're living elsewhere.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'll just go get stuff from the base.
Yeah.
So I used to get the Batmans, used to love the Neil Adams Batmans. Grew up on the Spider-Man stuff, particularly the Spider-Man buggy era. You remember that?
Right.
So, and then I moved to Canada as a kid, and it still was of interest for me.
So were you first in the U.S. or were you in Europe at that time? When
I was born in Spain. So
you were born in Spain. Got it.
Right.
That's what I was trying to get from you. I was like,
right. And then
was he in Brooklyn? I was like, the Brooklyn Navy Yard? No, that's like that.
No. This is in Spain. Mm-hmm. Then we moved to Canada because my dad's job, and then still pursued it. I still something that was always heavy on my mind.
Right.
I got influenced a little bit by Ted Knight's show, where he was a cartoonist.
Right.
The idea of being around my kids, you know, as a career, you know, like I always thought it was cool that he always had his kids around him because my dad was always out working, and you know, it was because he's an engineer. Right. I always thought, you know, it'd be kind of cool to be able to work and have my kids around. And then my mom kept pushing me into film. I went into film. I was okay at it, but there were some things that business of film that really opened up my eyes to the racism within film.
Right.
And I'll give you an example. This is before Will Smith became super popular.
Right.
So we're sitting in our business of film class, And one of the people who's a representative for one of the major studios, and this is Canada, but still a lot of the big American studios are there.
Right, right.
I can't remember if it was Warner Brothers. I don't know which studio, but it was an American studio. And he comes in, and some of the young Caribbean women asked him, why aren't there more black faces as leads?
Right.
And
What
without
was his
even
response?
batting an eye, he just says, black faces don't sell movies.
Oh
And I
God.
literally ducked because they were sitting behind me. I knew where that was going to go. So they went to town on them, appropriately so. And then I thought, man, if I have to go in to one of these places
Mhm.
asking for whatever it is to just get something made, if
Mhm.
they're looking at the actors thinking they can't make money, what are they
Right.
going to think about the creators?
Right.
So I turned back to my love of comics because I
Mhm.
thought, well, I won't make that much at it,
Mhm.
but at least I'll be the king of my very tiny, tiny hill. So I get to create what I want to, and screw all that. So that's really what really pushed me into it. It was
I've
funny because
heard that as well. I've heard that as well in comic books too. When I was in SVA, that you heard a lot of that as well.
right,
When Milestone came out, it was such a threat. You know,
yeah,
they were
yeah,
they were upset. You can see that people were visibly and aggressively upset. It was just like this whole taking of the knee thing, right? It was just like we have a black comic book company and we're competing with the big guys, and people responded to it just like Colin Kaepernick taking a knee at the game. It was a
well, it is the
ridiculous.
treehouse.
Yeah.
It is. Oh, it's going to sound terrible, but it is the whiteboard treehouse.
Hmm.
So once we kind of approach that, then there's going to be problems.
Yeah.
But I always thought that fight can be fought. When you're dealing with large studios over movies and millions of dollars, that's a really tough fight.
Yeah.
That's why my feeling is no matter how anyone feels about Black Panther, I hope that exec is still alive. So he saw the numbers and had to put his ears down. So to me,
Yeah.
that's like, yeah, I hope
The guy
wherever
who
he
claimed that
is.
it was impossible to make, right? That guy.
Yeah. And
It
it
was
was
like,
before Independence Day.
yeah.
It's Independence Day too. So, but that's the attitude.
Originally, it was supposed to be Wesley Snipes as Black Panther back in the 90s. They were talking about doing that.
Yeah, I think he bought the rights for it, or he had the script idea for it, or something. But
Mm-hmm.
so that's what got me down that path. But what got me down my path to create my own stuff is I kept trying to get into Marvel and DC,
Mm-hmm.
and I did a Black Widow submission, and a Japanese friend of mine asked me, "Oh, is this your character?" And I'm like, "No." He said, "Oh, it's too bad you don't have your own character." Right? And then I kind of thought, but
Why
Japan,
not?
that's what they do.
You're right.
They're not curating someone else's stuff. They're doing their own stuff. So
Right. Exactly.
that got me into that. Not to just, you know,
They have a cooler system for getting comic book artists, I feel,
yeah, it's about creation. You
Yeah.
know, it's a very interesting business model.
Yeah.
If you get somewhat of a hit, you get an anime.
Right.
Anime could lead to a movie or a video game. So they kind of have this whole system worked out. I think it's
Mhm.
brilliant.
And
And
they
really,
accept submissions. That's basically how they find new talent.
yeah,
Whereas in American companies, they just go to conventions and steal your shit.
yeah,
They don't take submissions. They used to take submissions when I was a kid, but that stuff gets stolen too.
yeah,
They wouldn't bring you in.
yeah. And you know what? Eventually, that kills innovation.
Yeah,
That kills
exactly.
innovation because people get dispirited.
Yeah,
And once you start killing innovation and culture, eventually it starts affecting everything. And
yeah,
that's a sign of a dying culture.
yeah,
And we need innovation. We need to be able to do that. Um,
exactly.
so,
And you have to be
yay.
willing to move with the times as well. You know.
Yeah, things change,
Hmm.
But of course, they got the copyright for, the year 3000 for things like Mickey. Right. which is insane. And it's kind of problematic, right? I mean, it's that unwillingness to move everything forward,
Right, right.
So it's insane. It's insane,
Oh, completely insane, man. It just, and it doesn't
France,
make any sense.
France works along the same ways as Japan, where it's more submission based.
Right.
You can find, like, here, it's like comics is huge, so it's
And
not.
and you have more people reading over there. You feel it's more mainstream than over here.
Oh man, you can go to a grocery store, and the book section's just jam packed with it. They got their manga section. They have some of the American imports, but they got a whole bunch of their own stuff.
Yeah, if next time I go to France, you got to show me, because I was there for like 8 hours once on a layover.
Yeah,
back in 2010.
Yeah,
it was too short, and it was a snowstorm, so I was like,
yeah, nah. They have They have a lot of comic festivals here, but the big one,
that gigantic one, right? It's bigger than San Diego, right?
It's the whole town. It's like this whole entire town. So you're walking through and you're like, okay, let's go to this building over here and check this out. And let's go over to this building over here. And you get your passes at City Hall. It's massive. And it's funny because I actually ran into people from stateside at that festival. Yeah, it's huge. Wow. It's like the con of comic books.
Right.
It's huge. So,
what's the name of it again? Because I've seen it on video. I've never been. I was like, I gotta go there.
Angoulême. Yeah, actually, I think we have a video on that for Paris and the Geek. I'm sure we do. Angoulême. Yeah, it's huge. I don't know how it's been doing now with all the confinement crap.
Oh man,
which has been a problem.
I know Thought Bubble. I was trying to go to England for that, and then they ended up canceling. I had applied for a table for that show. That's like the indie con in England.
Right. Yeah. No, but they take comics here a lot more seriously. It's they have, I think, 9 arts. I think the comic books is like the 7th art. So it's even taught in schools. Like they break down like what a panel is, word bubbles, everything. Kids came home and they have all sorts of stuff. So it's not seen as a
hobbyist thing. Yeah.
Like in the States, it's sort of seen like, oh, that's a dumb art. But that's just, that's just dumb.
Yeah, exactly. When I was in college, they were like, that's not even art. I mean, I remember I had some pretty famous teachers. What was her name? Nancy Collins, I think it was, something like Nancy something. Yeah, I think it was. She was like super famous, and she was my professor, and she was like, "Is this even art?" I'm like, "Are you fucking serious? Are you serious?" It's like you're art by profession, like you're a known, and I was like, how can you say is it art?
He's lucky she didn't talk to Umberto Eco.
Yeah,
no, seriously, this guy loves comic books.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, he's the guy that wrote In the Name of the Rose. Mm-hmm. You don't get much brainier than this guy. I mean, he was a professor on like histories and stuff. Like this guy walks in, they say, "Oh, we want you to write a short story." He's like, "Nah, my first piece of writing will be a novel." And out comes In the Name of the Rose, right? And he's famously quoted for saying, when I want something more serious than Marx, I'll sit down and read Hugo Pratt's Corto Maltese.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, Corto Maltese is awesome. I mean, like in terms of the history and stuff, that guy just puts so much history into it. So their comics is it's 2 things that I would say distinguish European comics from American: travel and history.
Yeah.
It's very driven by those 2 things.
Right.
So there was actually a comic I picked up on American plantations, which was really weird. It's talking about, they got a whole bunch of stuff on that. You'd be surprised.
Yeah, I got to learn French.
Yeah.
Like Jim Morrison, just leave America and go to France. I'm going to be
right. I'm over here. So it's interesting, and French comics has influenced our cinema. We have people like Mobius. I mean,
oh yeah,
I could Alien or Tron or any of those other things. So yeah.
Very true. And you have that female detective too from the 60s that was also a comic book I forgot her name. She looks like Breakfast at Tiffany's, but then she's like a detective. I think they modeled the character after her, but she rides a scooter like a moped, and she's like a detective. It's like
Yeah, there's a lot.
it's an old comic.
There's a lot.
I was at the last San Diego I went to in 2018. They actually did a sideshow, was doing a statue of that character. It was like what they call prime 1 scale, which is like 1/4 scale size statue. I was like, whoa. I was like,
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
but I'm kind of curious how many stateside would kind of care, because they're kind of like very insular, unless you're an artist. And you get
exactly.
right into it, right? Like,
yeah. I mean, I love a lot of stuff. That's. I mean, I remember reading Tintin and Asterix, and people didn't really read that stuff, you know. And even as a kid on the Spanish channels, we had more manga on the Channel 41 than you had in the America. I mean, I remember seeing Astro Boy and Speed Racer in Spanish, and El Capitan something, which was a manga.
Captain Harlock.
Yeah. It's like
yeah.
You know,
I grew up on a lot of anime in Spain, Messenger Z. And when I went over to Canada, sort of like the Anglo countries didn't have that stuff.
Yeah.
It was just like, till Robotech.
Right, Robotech, yeah.
That I was like, oh, wow, finally.
Yeah.
It only took you guys like 6 years.
Exactly. You know, I feel that, yeah, when I go to Asia, like where my wife is from in Taiwan, or if I go to Japan, I always feel like New York is always like, it used to be 6 years behind, but now I feel like the last time I went was 2 years ago, and I feel like we're like 15 years behind now. It's like wow. I remember in 2006 you could already walk through a turnstile without having to pull out your Metro card.
Right.
It just scanned you, and then you could use that same your bank card, your debit card, as a ticket for the train. Right. And then you could also buy, or if you get the Metro card, right, what they call the yo-yo card, you could buy drinks with it at a vending machine. You could buy anything with it, you know.
Wow.
It just wasn't
a Metro card.
It just wasn't a Metro card. You could buy like everything. It was like a debit card, basically.
Wow.
You know? So
yeah, they're not quite there yet here with that. They do have the they still have the cheesy little tickets, but they do have the sort of like a Metro card that you don't even need to swipe it. You just put it on, lets you through.
Yeah, this lets you through. Yeah. So they had that back in 2006 in Taiwan.
Wow.
You know.
Hey.
Like, you know.
Innovation.
You know, like if you're in Japan in the 80s, they're already selling used panties in a vending machine. You know, you're already behind the times.
Oh God. Yeah. There is that New York side, though, to me that makes me think, are they really used, or are you just saying they are?
Yeah, they're
stuff that you can't sell, and you're just saying, yeah, sure, just tell me to. You know what I mean? Like,
it's like who would buy that stuff? But it sells.
That's sad.
Yeah. It's interesting to see different cultures and different, you know, different societies. You know.
Oh yeah. One of the things that I learned real quick moving back as an adult to Europe was how different each of these cultures are. Like going from New York to Spain was probably the worst idea ever. For one reason, because in New York, you expect everything super fast.
Right.
And in Spain, it's kind of like mañana. What? It's like yesterday.
Yeah.
Tomorrow. We'll do that tomorrow. Don't worry about it. You
were back.
Right. And it's just like, it just drives you a little bit like, and then you realize after I moved, then I realized, yeah, probably going from like the Autobahn to a rural road is not the greatest thing to do. You know?
Right. I agree.
It's like, you know, I love Spain.
I'm still in New York. When I left New York City and I moved up to the woods here, yeah, it's same thing. My wife hates it. She has to get her city fixed daily. So she goes into the city. It's like me. I love it up here. It's quiet. And now working home from home is, which is about to end. In another week. Next week, I'll be back at work. But yeah, it's just like, but a year and change working from home was just
Wow.
like beautiful.
Did you have to get the shot?
I have to sign up for it. I haven't done it yet. I'm
You
still
haven't
on the
done it
fence.
yet.
Still on the fence with that. It's like,
Yeah, I don't blame you. I don't blame
yeah.
you because
I mean, I'm not an anti-vaxxer, but I could tell you
yeah,
as a parent, and back in the 90s when my daughter was born, and then I distinctly recall very, very vividly when we took her to get her vaccinations as an infant, uh, how she lost her ability to speak, her ability to feel sensation, feeling. Her mind went backwards. So she was already almost 2 years old, and or maybe she was like maybe just about a year and a half. But she was already formulating words. She could say daddy, she could say mommy. She could look at a picture and you could say, who's that? And she could say, that's mommy, that's daddy. Even if it was a picture of you as a kid, she could figure that out. If you try to trick her. And then after she got her vaccines, she didn't speak ever again. And she's 24 now, and she lost her ability to speak. She was classified as autistic. Never came back. No matter, we put her in private schools, all that stuff. So I know that vaccines do damage, do harm certain people, not everybody. Overall, they're good for the majority of people, but there is a select population that just can't have it. Just like you have a select population getting vaccinated now with COVID-19 and dropping dead. I mean, there's a select few. Who knows?
Well, it's all of us have a different immune system. That's the thing, right?
Yeah. So it's not a one size fits all. We don't go to the shoe store and get the same size shoe, right? We don't get the same size clothing. Everyone has their own. We don't take the same exams if you're going to be a doctor and I'm going to be a schlepper. It's like you know what I mean. It's like there is not a one size fits all. But with the vaccines, it's a one size fits all, and that's the problem. It should be based on your genetic makeup.
That's why there's that patent thing,
Right.
which has been causing problems because last I checked, I think part of the reason Ghana told Switzerland it's not supplying it anymore with cocoa.
Right.
Because of the AstraZeneca. They don't want
Really?
to. And they're like, okay, well, if you're not going to make it generic for us, guess what? You know how we're your top supplier for cocoa for the supposed Swiss chocolate that you have?
Right, exactly. Swiss chocolate. It's like it's
not happening. The president went to Switzerland to tell them that. And
I never even heard that. That must be all the rage over there. But I never even heard that.
I was laughing. I'm not a big fan.
Yeah.
Big fan of Ghana, yeah, but
not a Swiss miss. It's like
so
tell us about you've done a lot of comic books over the years. You've done a lot, but your new one is Ghost Metal, right? And you have another one. What's the other one called? Webtoons.
Wolf Boy. Wolf Boy ended, but they're both on Webtoon. So if you go to Webtoon, you search for Wolf Boy, or if you search for Ghost Metal.
I'm going to share my screen right now. I'm already on it.
You'll find them. Wolf Boy's ended on Webtoon. You can go read it all the way through. The first graphic novel's up.
Yeah. Can you see it? Can we see can you see my screen?
I can see your screen.
Can we see that this is your comic? This is Ghost Metal.
This is Ghost Metal. This is so it's a series of, we're going to do 100 stories.
You're going to do 100 stories.
Or maybe more. And it's basically like an anthology of short horror and sci-fi stories.
That's cool.
This was called Prophet's Curse. And it's a Nostradamus story.
Awesome. Let me ask you, drawing this, the orientation, you're not doing traditional comic book pages, right? This is just straight up digital doing panels, right? Like vertical panels.
I have to thank Susie because she's my partner in crime.
Yeah.
Co-writer, letterer, and she chops up the comic book pages for the format for Webtoon, because Webtoon operates this way. It's literally panel by panel. So you
Wow.
don't really get that, I guess you would say, panoramic
Right.
shots that you can. So
Because it's designed by the cell phone, right?
right, this is designed for the cell phone. So it's more vertical. So
Right.
she ended up so the pages are actually designed for actual
Oh,
comic book pages, but we redesign it, chop it up
oh, what did I
for.
do? I skipped episodes. Oh, I see. So how many episodes you have right now? Up, not 100, right?
No, and it's 100 stories, so it won't be 100 episodes.
Okay. So
It'll be
100 stories.
I think we're at 20.
Now, in comparison to, is this like, do you cut like a traditional comic book in half and then have it like issue one is really issue 1, 2, and 3 or something like that? Or
Well, these are short stories, so these
so they
pages,
begin and end.
yeah, they wouldn't have made a full comic book alone.
Right.
So this one was 8 pages, comic book page, 8 or 10 comic book pages. So
Right.
because they're short stories, they don't really warrant the full
Mhm.
one-shot comic. And I've done a lot of short stories over the years. I did some for Heavy Metal
Right.
magazine, and I really wanted to make a collection of short stories, like sort of like a compiled version. And then COVID hit, and decided, so what we're going to do with this? I don't know. So
Was that going to be published by you or by Heavy Metal? Because
well,
is
it's
it
going to be published by me. No, it was going to
Is
be
it,
published by me. But I
your
had
stories
some.
are independently owned, right? Like when you
Yeah.
publish Heavy Metal. That's
Oh yeah, through Heavy Metal's like a one-shot deal. So they
yeah.
don't own anything other than that one print that goes up, and boom, that's it. And
Right.
whatnot. So I wanted to reprint some of these old stories I had
Mhm.
through them. Some a little too cheeky to put up on Webtoon.
Mm.
So, but maybe down the road they'll appear on a print version of Ghost Metal.
Yeah.
So, and there was other stories that I wanted to tell, but I just didn't really have quite the time. So I wanted to serialize them, and I really didn't have an outlet for that. The way comics works, you either do one shot of 22 pages,
Mhm.
or you just don't do it.
Right.
So this is kind of a great way for me to start working out some stuff that I might not otherwise do.
Right. I think it's a great title. First off, I mean, Ghost Metal.
Thanks.
What
That's
a
Susan.
badass title. I would suggest you register that internationally.
Yeah.
I don't sleep on that.
Yeah.
That's my thing.
No, I understand. From a lot of your woes, I totally understand.
That's and I've been doing that for my first copyright was I was 18. I think I was still in high school. I think I was 17 or 18, my very first, I was going to night school. So I was a senior in high school.
Mhm.
And a friend of mine at the time we were doing a fanzine together, and he was showing me how to copyright your stuff, because I was doing poor man copyright, like mailing in, taking the original.
Yeah, you do that too, yeah.
Mailing it to myself. I still have one sealed to this day.
Yeah.
But then I eventually, I was making because I would photocopy and ink the photocopies. I didn't want to ink the originals.
Right.
So I mailed the originals to myself. But then I learned how to actually do it, and I realized how easy it was.
Right.
I've done it ever since. And then trademarks too. I mean, people pay lawyers like the whole DC Marvel thing. I went through LegalZoom, and that's how I got caught in that. That's how I got caught in that whole fiasco, was because of LegalZoom not doing the due diligence. When they filed. And ever since that, I've filed my own trademarks since 2010.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I remember a mutual friend of ours, because I had come up with a comic called Super. It was going to be called Superhero Inc.
Yeah, that was a great book too. I love that concept.
Yeah, and it's still in the works.
I still remember the Batman character with the credit card machine. Like, I'll run your card.
Yeah.
Want me to save you? I was like that was the funniest line. I was like then you had the Elvis looking dude. I thought that was kind of cool too.
Yeah, he's a jerk. Yeah.
Yeah, that was great. That
It
was
was our mutual friend, Melvin.
yeah,
I heard he recently passed and
yeah.
wanted to
It's
say
unfortunate.
very talented guy. He reached out to me and said, "Hey man, can't use a superhero in it in your title." And at first, I thought he was completely joking, like it was some sort of joke. But then I realized, well, it's Melvin. He doesn't really joke.
Right.
And he said, "Hey, you need to get a hold of Ray. Talk to Ray." So I got a hold of him. I got a hold of you, and whatnot. So it was quite sad to hear his passing. And
It
uh,
was. I'm still really bummed out about it. We used to do a lot of shows together, and not just in comic conventions. We did Big Apple maybe 3 times together, 3 or 4 times, but we did a lot of nightclubs. Like he introduced me to this whole other world of like nightclub comic shows, and they weren't just comic shows, but like you'd go to like the Limelight or like I
that's
forget
a
some
little
names of these clubs, but they had a lot of different clubs that had um I know Limelight was one of them. There was one where that used to be the bank, but at that time it was called something else. It was a
right.
vampire club. It was a gothic vampire club.
Oh yeah, he was totally into that goth stuff.
And then there was one in Queens also that was another gothic club where I met Baron Mascuro, Baron
Mhm.
Mascuro, and he was a comic book guy too. That guy, he was doing comics. So it was interesting. So they had like these night shows where people sold shirts. It was like a con. They sold shirts. Some people sold like like gothic wear, teeth. Gothic clothing. It's kind of like what you see in a Comic Con now, but back then you didn't see that
Yeah.
stuff in a Comic Con. Uh,
Wow.
and we did those shows. I mean, I met like one of the top people that worked with Playboy there at one of the shows. Yeah, like one of the directors that worked, like the right hand of the publisher. What's his name?
Hugh
Hugh
Hefner?
Hefner.
Wow.
So I met a lot of people through Melvin, and we had a lot of fun times. Like
Yeah, he worked for Neil Adams for a while too, and
yeah, he did. He worked for Neil Adams. Yeah, and
yeah,
he did
that
a lot
was
of stuff.
it was strange because before you posted, a week before you posted, I hadn't thought about him because we had lost touch since I moved, and
Mhm.
thought, I hope he's okay.
It just entered in your mind, right?
Yeah, it just sort of entered in my eyes. It's sort of weird because it's been like years. And then you
Just
posted
pop-
what you posted, and I was like, "What?"
Yeah,
And quite
it,
shocked.
it happens like that sometimes. Like something randomly pops in your head, and I found out while I was interviewing Sam Vera last week. We did a 3-parter, which
Wow.
was insane. Uh,
Mhm.
we had a good time, and I see that George was there, and he was watching a minute ago. Uh, and
Mhm.
so yeah, it's just like, and then he told me after off camera, and I was like, what? I was like, what? He was like, it's
Wow.
so it's terrible what happened to Mel, and I was like, what happened to Mel? I was like, because I haven't
Right.
spoken to him in a long time. My son is 12. I think the last time I hung out with him, my son must have been 2, maybe 3.
Right.
When you get married, you get caught up, with life. And then
Life.
plus I was doing the conventions, and then I was, I don't know, I was like the Tyler Durden. Most people don't know that,
Mhm.
I was a full-time teacher. Then I was a after-school coach. I coached wrestling for a while. Then I coached track. And then I was doing the comic conventions at the same time. Then I was a, it's like I
Wow.
was just super busy. Like I was just doing
Right.
stuff, you know.
Yeah, I
Uh,
lost touch with them about the same time as you did. It was just a matter of I moved over here,
yeah.
and it takes a while to get settled in when you move.
Oh, sure.
And then I move again.
Yeah. And then you have a family. You have kids, right? You have 2
I
kids.
have kids. I have 2 kids. My son's your son's age. He's 12,
No. Yeah.
and I
So
have a daughter that's 10. So yeah,
it's a handful, right?
yeah, yeah. And now I got a puppy. That's
Oh
about
no, you just added to it. Well, it's
yeah.
either that or add an additional kid, right?
Yeah, it's like a furry child. Um,
Yeah.
you know, uh,
Pets
so
are like children for sure. You know.
yeah, they are. Except they can't. They can communicate, but they don't communicate in the same way.
Right, right, right.
And then
Which
you
is
kind
good.
of think, wow, how frustrating must that be for them to not be able to say, hey, I need to go out to the bathroom.
Right.
Just like it's like I'm gonna have to bark at you, right? I
Right.
think if I was in that position, wow, that's terrible. So
Yeah, yeah, for real.
kind of interesting. So yeah, but yeah, I just wanted to give a shout out to
To
Mel.
Mel, yeah, yeah. I was talking to Gary Camp, one of my old partners that I worked with the Bronx Heroes years ago.
Mhm.
He was saying he wanted to do a Melvin Yelagin memorial thing, like a drawing thing, and make it go viral. I was like, that's a great idea. So I was like, oh, maybe we could do a Gothis challenge. And I was like, no, maybe he's like, no, we could draw pictures of Melvin and post them. And I was like, all right, maybe we could do that with his character or something. I haven't done it yet, but he said he's going to start it. So I was like, okay. And then we'll just do like, we'll create a hashtag and let it go viral because he knew a
Let
lot
me
of
know.
people in the industry,
Yeah, let me know. Let me
Yeah.
know.
So I was thinking about calling it the Gothis challenge, but then maybe it should have his name in it. So we know,
Yeah,
remember Mel or something like that,
remember Mel? Yeah,
something simple. So,
it's got this comic.
yeah.
Yeah, I can kind of see from the comp from what you were describing about the clubs, the whole gothic thing.
Oh,
How
yeah.
that
He lived
was
it. That comic book was it. And we did a book together years ago. I don't have it on the wall here because it's not appropriate, but my first flip book was with Melvin. Like, I
Mhm,
had a book called OD's Helpful Hints, which was like an adult humor comic, you know,
mhm.
and I started that in Brooklyn. It started out as art shows, which is funny because that's how Bronx Heroes started. So I started out as art shows. I was doing these series of cartoony paintings,
Right.
and then I ended up doing a book uh,
Mhm.
based on those paintings. And then Melvin at Big Apple saw it, and he was like, "This is great, man. We should do something together." And he had a little like Nazi alien character. It was like an alien that looked like Hitler, and then he had this girl with big boobs, and then it's called Jazz and Hip, and it was the most. It
That's
was this triple X. It was a triple X little.
wow.
He had like a little ash can that he just made at Kinko's. Back in the day, you go to Kinko's,
Mhm.
it's like. And he was like, "Hey, would you want to like do something with this?" And I was like, "You want to publish this?" And I was like, "I don't know. This is kind of heavy." But we did it, and we actually did it as a half and half book. So one side for the second issue of my book and his second issue of Jazz and Hip. We just put them together, and we sold out. We sold a lot of those, man. And this is in the day of your minimum order was 1,000 copies.
Yeah.
Well, we went to print twice. So we sold essentially 2,000 copies because I only have like maybe one or two left in existence, and which I just found like this past year. I just found it a few months ago
Odd.
during which is probably around the time when he passed, actually, which was February.
Odd.
So I
Very
just
odd.
bumped into that book, and found like a box of it's like maybe like 7 or 8 of them, and then I
Right.
ended up giving them away. It's like
Wow. Wow.
you don't want the kids finding that. Like it's like
Yeah. No. No.
you know,
That's
like they're like wow.
yeah. Yeah. Dad. Yeah. You don't
So
want.
so we were on tour and we did a bunch of stuff, for a number of years.
Yeah. He. I would. I met him through. How did I meet him? I
Prior
think
to
it
the
might.
CAG, was it through the CAG?
Well, I used to go to Mocha, so I might have met him at Mocha
Maybe at Mocha, yeah.
or New York Comic Con, but I think it was through you.
Yeah, maybe it was through me because he was at the first Bronx Heroes. So was you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually found the picture the other day on my website of you with a beard.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I'd sort of switch between the two every once in a while. Got the beard sometimes.
Yeah, it's on the Bronx Heroes website. Actually, it's going through.
You have to check that out.
Yeah, it's Hello, take you down memory lane here.
Yeah, strange. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I just thought it'd be appropriate because we both knew him.
Oh man, he is
Super incredibly
phenomenal.
talented artist.
Phenomenal artist. I was talking to this one guy. What was it? and they said that they thought that he was gonna, they thought that Melvin was gonna attack him or something like that. They were like, because he was acting out his comic book, and that was something he would do. Like, reminded me of Looney Tunes. Like, I saw a documentary on Looney Tunes one time, and then the creators would act out the scenes.
Yeah, that's very traditional for animators to do.
Yeah, for animators. And Melvin used to do the same thing. So he'd tell you his comic book, and he'd start acting it out, like moving around. He was very animated, which was so cool. It was, you don't meet people like that. And
if no one tells you,
right, you just don't know what to expect. You're like, what the heck?
Especially when you're in his apartment. For the first time.
Right,
Like,
right. So you're just
what's going on?
Right.
So, yeah. He was a character.
So you're in this apartment, and then he's like, "Is he gonna kill me? Is he?" You're like, you're
Looking
like,
for the exits.
and there's only one. It's like, yeah, I find it hilarious. I find it. Everyone. I've been reaching out to people because when he passed away, I reached out to people that I knew him. I wasn't sure. I was like, "Am I the last to know?" Or it didn't seem that way. So there you go.
Oh, there I am. Wow.
Let's see what you have on the table there. You have Alric Wild, right? Am I reading that?
Which is Wolf Boy. I got some of my heavy metal, some of the fantasy prints. I got Morg, which is actually up on Ghost Metal right now.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And these are your paintings that you did on heavy metal there, right?
Well, no, they didn't. They were sort of like I tried to pitch them, but I ended up selling them as prints.
Oh.
And I have my 2 books, my Samurai Elf books, which I have to finish that series. I have like a book or 2 left in that series to complete it. Yeah. Wow, that's years ago.
Dude, yeah, this is a long time ago, man. That's 12 years ago. Hey, there goes Mel here.
Yeah.
With his goddess.
Yeah.
That was like
no one ever I think that if we would have warned each other, everybody would have. Don't worry, he's just very animated,
right?
That certainly the surprise of
yeah, he was
acting it out. You're like, whoa.
This is the special guest Erwin Hasen and Jim Salicrup, where he was the honorary guest for that year.
Right.
He was a trip too. I mean, did you ever meet him? Did you ever get a chance to meet Erwin? He was such a trip.
No, I was glued to my desk, to my table.
He was totally hilarious. My God, that guy was. We even had some hip hop legends at that show, I believe. Let's see. Yeah, we have Melly Mel here.
Wow.
And then we have Curtis Blow, I believe. Let's see. A few people came through for that show. It was like, and it was a small show,
Right.
You got the Catch the Craze guys that were here the other day. Look at that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I still stay in touch with them.
Yeah. We had Curtis Blow and Melly Mel, and then another guy. But all the hip hop guys came through. Let's see if that's a better shot. There goes. Yep, that's him, Curtis. There. Wow. That was good times, man. Good times.
Yeah. I loved your shows.
There were, it's my wife said, well, if you didn't change the name and, because in the 7th year we became Women in Comics, for business reasons. And also, because I wanted to stand out more. I thought that the Women in Comics would be more international, but we did 5 of those shows and I'm going to continue doing them.
Right.
After the pandemic is over, but, my wife was like, like all the drama you're going through now, if you just kept it Bronx Heroes, you wouldn't be going through this. I was like, well, technically it was. It says Bronx Heroes every year on the banner. It says Bronx Heroes on top of it. It's like, to me, you see, the thing is, I never saw it as any different,
Right.
But when certain people start making distinctions and trying to say that, no, that's not your show, that's this person's show, and you're like, no, it's not. It's like, where are you getting this from? It's like, I'm the one that's. Craig all the work. You know, it's like
it's from the association of the word woman,
you're right.
and I
People
think
just-
that's like I don't know. It's very
People are just too literal in this.
oh
You know?
like right now everything's very like on edge.
Yeah. It's like if you told somebody, you know, Jonah was swallowed by a whale, literally, most people in America will tell you, yeah, it literally happened. But, you know, mature people who are well read know it's a metaphor. You know,
And then you get the arguments between
yeah,
why the whale should have eaten him,
right.
how it was Jonah's fault, and how Jonah's a jerk. And
Right,
you have the other people saying, no, the whale's a jerk for
right,
eating Jonah.
right.
You know, that's where we're at. It isn't just like the event happened.
Right.
Now we got two sides on this event.
Right. It's concrete operations. That's what it is. People are operating on a concrete level, you know, and not, yeah, you know, it's like,
It's this feeling of getting caught up in the mob.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it's something that's very part of our culture.
Absolutely. Yeah. I feel like, you know, I hate the term cancel culture. That floating around, just like I hate the term reverse racism. I hate that term. It's like, what does that even mean? It's like, I hate those. I hate labels. I hate terms. But what's happening on social media, which I guess I just chalk it down to internet bullying, trolling, is basically cyber lynchings. That's all. That's all they are. It's like, you know.
Look over there. Yeah.
Right. That's what it is. It's all it's the Roman games with the animals eating the Christians, or you know, like, you know, it's like that's
it's a scarlet letter.
Right. It's a scarlet letter. Yeah. It's just like, so I think that all these people, the internet basically gave people the will to express their opinion, whether or not you want to hear it. It's like,
well, I think a lot of it is it's looking like, to condemn.
Yes, it is.
There's a sort of like a high some people get from feeling
right.
Right. Instead of like, well, I don't like them, therefore I won't interact with them.
Right. Well, I don't know the elections in France, but you know, you saw what happened here from 2016 to that major division, and I feel that, and this is me personally. People might hate me because I say it, but number one, we don't really live in a democracy. We don't have real choice here. They're giving you Coke, they're giving you Pepsi, and you got to choose one or the other. So you really can't, as a people, as a society. Are you really going to go for blood because somebody else chose this other side? It's like, some people are like, yes, I will. But I mean, but honestly, I don't think that we're an actually structured democracy, or, you know, we're really a republic. But even so, even as a republic, we don't really function as one. We really function as, we were a government that had democratic issues, and we were a republic, right? But now we're more like a giant shopping mall, and we're consumers instead of citizens first. And the people in power are all CEOs of different companies with their lobbyists and stuff. So they put the corporations, I feel, first before they put the people first. As you can see with these bailouts that are happening, you know, they bail out the corporations then before us.
That's how the country started.
Yeah, well, that's true.
The country started for landowners. And if you go prior to the country, to the colonial times, the only way you could actually have a representative in the colonial assembly was if you owned land. So all they did was, when they said, okay, we're now the United States of America, they took that, created the Electoral College. So we're not even really choosing Pepsi or Coke. Exactly. We're voting for someone to choose Pepsi or Coke.
That's right. That's right. You always put it very eloquently. So we're exactly
right. So
and we don't even know who that person is.
No, we don't. We don't. So it really hasn't changed.
Right.
It's more apparent.
Right. It's more apparent. Yeah. Because of the internet. And
Right. Right. It's like, so you're arguing over what, like, if, I mean, there's the argument to get rid of the electoral college or to keep it. My view is if you keep it, you got to have proportional sort of
right.
like numbers. If New York State has X amount of people who vote Republican, X
Mhm.
amount of these people go to the Republican, X amount go to the Democrat.
Right.
Story. If you get rid of it, then you get rid of it, and we all vote and whatever it is. But it's really funny that the defensive, which was something that grew out of slavery, because
Right.
Virginia just had a small population of property owners and a huge population of slaves. It's the only reason we got the electoral college, because they're like, well, it means New York's going to have more than we do, and really we're the engine of economy.
Right.
So if we get rid of that, I mean, maybe we got a shot at being, somewhat democratic. But right now, I mean,
Well,
other than maybe our representatives, that has to be said,
right.
our representatives and senators and
Right.
local. But when it comes to the presidency, no.
Right.
And it is like choosing a CEO in many ways.
It is. It is. I mean, and the thing is, I always feel that the how we got here is that a lot of people don't vote in local elections,
Mhm.
and that's how we lost, the House and the Senate for so many years is because of that, because people just didn't go out and vote.
No.
And I am a true believer that our vote doesn't count, but guess what? It's my responsibility to vote, and I make sure that I do it every year, ever since I went to the post office. I'm not a believer in the system, but I participate in the system.
Right.
Well, it's like
It's
you
like
know, you know what I mean? It's
it
like,
works at the local.
yeah,
And if we could understand that it works at the local,
right,
then we can hopefully change the macro. But
right,
the thing
right.
is, the narrative in the media is president, 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 president.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you get your guy in. Guess what? Your guy doesn't have the Senate, and he doesn't. He needs the other two branches to pass stuff. And if
Right,
you don't have the right people there, then hey, so it's unless we're looking at it as an actual like strategy, then we should be like, yeah, okay, president, but we need these people to get stuff through.
right, exactly.
Right. So
Exactly.
um,
It does work. It does work, and I think the last elections prove that it does work. But at the same time, I don't know. It's just like it was still decided by the Electoral College at the end of the day.
yep,
It's like, you know what I mean?
yep.
I mean,
And it's going to be really tough for a third party to walk in because
and
of the
now they're
electoral
trying to,
college.
yeah, it's going to be exactly like they used to. Ross Perot was the one that came the closest.
Oh, they cut the plug on the
They
third
cut
party
the plug
electors.
exactly after that. Yes, exactly. And you know what's funny? I don't know. This is what I do for fun, right?
Mhm.
Right before the election, it's just like, when the new Spider-Man movie comes out, like, oh, I'm going to watch the Spider-Man movie before, right?
Right.
So before this past election, I watched every single political debate from Kennedy all the way
Wow.
to
That's dedication, man.
all the way to Clinton, Reagan, and it just made me realize one thing: we're completely bamboozled because they've been arguing about the same shit for the last 60 years. It's like,
The
and
needle
we're
hasn't
still in the
moved.
same spot.
Yeah, the needle hasn't moved.
It hasn't moved. It hasn't. It's a total illusion. It's like we're being gaslit by the government.
Well, I mean, ultimately, it's hard, but I don't know what the solution is because there's other problems. Like, for
Yeah.
example, here in France, uh, there isn't that much, I guess you could say, love for politicians, period.
Right.
So they
Seems
tried
like
to
universal.
Americanize the debates, and they were ticked off. They were like, I really don't, like a lot of the arguments that they were having were just sort of stupid. We just want to know, what are you going to bring to the table?
Right. Exactly. Stop the petty banter.
And they literally had a choice between Marie Le Pen, who is like Trump in a bra,
Right.
and Macron, who is by all intents and purposes, neoliberal.
Right.
So they were like, we had a choice between gonorrhea and, well,
Syphilis.
syphilis. So we went with syphilis, right? But I can tell you one thing, though, that the day after he got elected, people hit the streets, man, and they were They've been protesting all the way up to the pandemic. It's
Wow.
like freaking ongoing, and it's hilarious too because they don't let up. So of course, with the pandemic, there's some issues, but there's sort of disillusionment happening everywhere.
Yeah.
But if you're to ask them if they believe in the system, they probably be like, "What?"
There's no way.
And I can tell you one thing from one of the protests I saw. I had a protester, yellow vest. I was with them. I was going. I had a tour group, and we were going on the metro. And the guy's really nice. We're chit chatting. He spoke English, and he said to me, when are you guys going to start protesting? And I said, he actually said, when are you guys going to start protesting capitalism?
Right.
And I said, don't be waiting too long. We very much believe in it.
Right. When the electricity goes up.
I understand. So there's this sort of like hoping that we kind of get it around the world. It's never really like what happened on the 6th.
Right.
It's not seen like, haha, look what happened to them.
Right. Right.
There is a level of disappointment that happens. And I've seen it in a few people's eyes that I talked to that
Most definitely.
were like, kind of like that look. They really don't tell you, but they're kind of think we had hoped that you were better than that.
Right.
And I think that we don't understand that.
Right.
We have all this great marketing. Hey, we're this. And then there's the other thing, we don't live up to it. And when we don't, it's especially for the old world, because the old world kind of views itself as being corrupt anyway.
Right, exactly.
It's like, so when you're looking, it's like an old person looking at the younger generation going, hey, maybe they're going to get it together. They're going to do something that we couldn't do it. And then they kind of see the same and maybe sometimes worse. And they're like,
yeah, exactly.
Disappointing. So
yeah, it is. It's a carousel. That's what it is. It's really a carousel.
Yeah, but
where can we find your comics, man? Where can we find them? Where can we find your? Let me switch hats over here.
Webtoon.
Webtoon.
Yeah, content time. Webtoons.
All right, and then
Webtoons. We will be hitting another web comic site called Tapas, but that's a little later on. But for right now, you can find it on Webtoons. We have those two. Ghost Metal.
Is it multi-languages? I saw some French writing in that Ghost Metal.
Well, that was because it was Nostradamus and
right.
But I'm hoping to have some of my stuff translated to French, not by me.
Right.
My son volunteered. He says, "Yeah, I'll translate Wolf Boy," and I'm looking to getting back to translating some of the other stuff into Spanish.
Right.
But for right now, it's going to be English, so you can find it on Webtoon. And it's every week. It's on Fridays. And and it switches up. So it's not always going to be the same story. Sometimes we return back to some of the characters. Sometimes we don't.
Right.
And we're thinking of something more along the lines of a Twilight Zone.
Oh, that sounds awesome. Something
where it's like crazy stories with twists and all sorts of stuff.
Oh, that sounds awesome. I can't wait for that. That just be
that's very 80s, by the way. I love that.
Yeah,
the font, it's the color of the font. So for right now it's there. Still have to find a decent printer that does
check out Mixam. They're in England, and I use them. I use their Chicago branch, mixam.com.
Oh, cool. Do they do like
everything? They do hardcover, coffee table, digest, comics. They do lots of different
like print on demand. So if
print on demand, they do that too.
Cool, because for me, I kind of find that we're not using print on demand as much as we should.
Yeah, yeah.
Everything's really local and we need to ship it around. Diamond.
Yeah, for real.
You know, so
I'm gonna put your webtoons in all three of our comment rooms, so
oh,
that
cool. Thank
people
you.
could find your book.
And it's absolutely free.
That's awesome.
Absolutely free. You know, subscribe, comment, all that stuff. It's free. You don't have to pay a dime for it. You
That's
know,
awesome, man.
yeah, because and I'll see some of my other stories might make it in there, or we might start a Samurai Elf one.
Hey, why not?
And whatnot. But for right now, it's ghost metal.
I'm gonna read it myself because I haven't read any comics in a minute. Because my New Year's resolution was this: stop buying the mainstream. So, I've held to it so far. I've
I
held to
hear
it
you.
so far. You know, it's like usually it's like a workout routine or like a dieting thing, but I can never stick to that. So I was like, let me do comics.
Right,
Because I was like, I need to stop funding and supporting the mainstream. And I had committed to that many years ago. I didn't buy anything Marvel or DC for almost a decade. And then I got hooked back into it. And then I stopped again during the lawsuit in 2010. And then I got hooked back again. But it was Batman. I was just such a lover of Batman because he's created in the Bronx that I just that was my anchor. You know, I used to go through different heroes, but Batman's like the constant. But
he's the Anglo Zorro.
Yeah, he's the Anglo Zorro. But I look at him differently. Zorro really tried to help people.
Yeah, Batman, I was going to say he's Anglo Zorro that doesn't help people like.
Right. He just beats up on the mentally ill and the poor.
Yeah. He's not a class trader.
Right.
He's not a class trader. Zorro was great because he was a class trader.
Right. Exactly. It's like I look at that more. He's like almost like in terms of Columbus, almost like he's really like he's helping out the rich. He's not helping the poor. You know.
Yep. Yeah, well, that's why he's the Anglo Batman.
Yeah,
I mean, the Anglo Zorro.
Someone actually said in a comment, it was a black guy on Instagram just recently. I thought it was funny. He says, you know, Batman could have taken that $10 million for his fancy car and his cave, and just poured into communities and projects and
hey.
like a sustainable living, sustainable. I was like, you know, he could have been like Ozymandias, but he didn't.
Yeah,
but he wasn't.
Yeah, you know, I mean, the great thing about Don Diego was, I felt that he was always fighting the feds.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
He's fighting.
But I don't know if you could get away with doing that without being called.
He was an outlaw. Yeah.
Yeah, he was a real outlaw. Like
he was like a cowboy.
Yeah, he was, and he's based on a real guy, but the real guy wasn't like. The real guy was Native American.
Right.
Which
was in 1912. The story was written, right? Something.
Yeah, and it was written by a Cherokee guy about this Mexican Native American guy, and it's wild. And then, of course, you know, then he got turned into Spanish guy.
Right. I still have the Mark of Zorro poster over my fireplace that I never used. It's like. So I got like a little Zorro Batman room in the next room over.
I love Zorro. I like Batman too. Don't get me wrong.
I do. I love Batman. I'm never going to change. But I'm not going to support the corporations that you know, they have bad writing. Honestly, that was the really Tom King. People like kiss his ass, and I never met the guy. I'm sure he's a very nice guy, but his stories weren't good. You know, I didn't find them entertaining. Some people did, and that's fine. You know, to each his own. And then this other guy, Tinian the Fourth. Same crap. Like, what is this? Like, what am I? What these guys? I don't know.
I stopped at when I moved. I spent most of my time collecting anything Mobius that I could hunt down.
Yeah,
because you couldn't get that stateside.
That's true. But his Blueberry is great too. That's a great magazine.
Yeah, that was a great book series. But his like, they came out with a collected version, like volumes of his collected stuff.
Oh, really?
Stuff. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, you can't find that here. I would have to probably dig on eBay or Amazon or something to find it.
I don't understand. I really don't understand how, because it's influenced so many artists.
Right, exactly.
Um, so I stopped with the mainstream,
Hmm.
like really serious stopped.
And you've been out of the States for over a decade already, right? I
Yeah,
think
they still sell that stuff here. You can buy English speaking comics over.
when you left, was that when George Bush was reelected?
No, it was when Obama was reelected.
Oh, Obama was reelected. Okay.
Obama was reelected, but
Okay.
I was collecting the old volumes
Mm.
because for me, the reprints of the old stuff is really because I thought to myself, I'm like, these characters, why did I like these characters? So I'm like, let me buy the old stuff. I'm
Yeah.
reading it going, oh, that's why.
Yeah, the last thing I had bought were the omnibuses of John Byrne, his X-Men and his West Coast Avengers and
Right.
Fantastic Four.
The old stuff's awesome.
Yeah,
I've been
it's fun.
Yeah.
And then you could see what's missing,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, for the life of me, I don't know why Marvel hasn't made a Spider-Man cartoon along the lines of a Batman animated series.
Yeah.
Instead of having like a 1950s thing, they could have a 1960s with a lot of jazz and stuff. Because when I look at Ditko stuff, there's so much of that era's in there.
Yeah.
That I kind of go, it's such a waste. But
I always wanted to see a Batman movie that was actually taking place in the 40s, and then going through the Dick Sprang era, almost like the Dick Tracy, the Dick Tracy movie. Like that was I mean, it had its issues, but the concept was there, the colors and the
right.
It was a corny film, but it was, but it had, and I think why not? Why not do a movie of Batman in the 1940s?
Right.
With the gun and all that, and
there's
bring them through all the way into the 60s and then the dark period.
Right. And I can tell you one thing though, that DC is doing one thing right, and it's animation.
Yeah, that's true.
My daughter loves the DC universe in that sense. She loves Marvel and stuff, but it's not as accessible.
Right.
So many of the movies are so much older.
Right.
For her, and some of them are just like, she's 10. It's a little too violent, right? It's a sort of a weird thing. It's really not. It's our age group, but really it's not, and it's not her age group. Right. So it's sort of like somewhere in between. Yeah, and for me, I think they've been dropping the ball on that.
Yeah.
Even video games. I was thinking, have you ever played? There was a game called Legacy of Kain.
No, I haven't played it.
Oh, you haven't? It was the wildest game, because you were this vampire in the future, and you can switch between spectral realms. So if you switched, the room changed, so you were able to access different parts of the room. Right. And for the life of me, I'm like, why aren't they doing something like that with Doctor Strange?
Right. That makes sense.
Why isn't there a search engine called the Silver Surfer? There's so many things that could be done with this that I just kind of think that they're just, I don't know.
Right.
I don't know what they're doing.
Because they're caught up in the gimmicks,
Yeah.
There's another word I hate, SJW. A lot of people throw that around. It's SJW. And I'm just like, well, what does that mean? And they say social justice warrior. I was like, why is that a bad thing? It sounds positive. It sounds positive. Why would they use that for a negative connotation? Well,
I think what between the cancel culture, the social justice warrior, many of the other things,
right?
People who are complaining about that really is anyone who makes them think.
Right, and I think a social justice warrior to me sounds like a superhero. It's not a bad thing. That was social justice warrior. It's funny because I'm 48, right? We're about the same age, right? I think
we're the same age.
We're the same age. So I feel like I'm still learning all these and I work at a high school. So I'm usually, what it is? I've been out of the high school for a year and a half because of the pandemic. So all these other words and acronyms, I've lost touch, so it's like, so I keep hearing there's people talking about things like that. I'm just like, what the fuck does that mean? I don't know.
Right. But something, it's not the younger kids. Like I've had to tell older people, look, kids don't use the word cancel culture.
Yeah.
You got to be over like 35 to be using cancel
Right,
culture.
right.
'Cause what you're saying is my kids are annoying me, therefore it's cancel culture, right? It's to get off my lawn.
Right.
It's
It's like,
it's the
leave me
same thing.
alone. That's like, I say that it's people who are afraid of change, but change is part of nature. You can't stop
Yeah.
it.
And if
Miguel,
you
I would
don't
love to have you on again because I really got to go get my wife.
okay, no worries, man. It was a
In like
pleasure being
9 minutes,
on
I
here.
gotta leave. But let's do this again. I mean,
Yes.
let's do this again. You let me know what your schedule is, and let's do it
Dude.
because I love talking to you, man. We need to talk more
Me
often.
too,
Yeah?
man.
Even off camera, we could like chit chat or whatever. 'Cause, like to pick your ear about your webtoons thing. We didn't really get into it too much, but I really would love to know the process of how you went and did that. But next time we'll keep that. We'll bookmark it there.
Right. Okay. We'll bookmark it there and we'll get back to it.
Because I gotta drive. I gotta
We
go
have some
drive
other
again.
things coming up too. So the next
Yeah, we could, and then send me some JPEGs and we'll post them up while talking about it. All right, man.
cool, man. All right.
Hang back for a second, and everyone else. Miguel Guerra, check it out. He's on Webtoons. I posted it in the link. Take it easy, guys.
It is.
There we
Amen.
go. And we're just signing off real quick.
All right.
So corny opening. It's like Saturday Night Live or something.
Good bag. That photo reminded me of Good bag.